Hello, my name is Andre, and this is episode 13 of Chronicles of Reality. And in this episode, I am going to cover the the mirror world, is what I have called it. So I explained in the previous episode that the astral bodies and astral clothing that I felt at the time were visible in mirrors. Eventually, I'd be able to see it to some degree myself, but they were very visible in mirrors. So I spent actually a lot of time at some point in front of the mirror. Given it was, yeah, it was a weird experience. So uh, so the mirror world. During those times that I'd look into the mirror and see my astral body, other things tended to happen down the line. So I began to be able to see shadow people and astral people within mirrors, especially the mirror that was in my apartment. So that was kind of a peculiar experience when it came to just getting ready for the day or anything like that, or coming home and everything. And I would find myself almost like at a standstill in different areas, just standing in different areas, or just walking around, and then ending up in certain spots. And one of those areas I would end up in would be in my bathroom in front of the mirror. As I said before, I have this side of me that is very analytical and becomes intrigued when certain things happen around me or even happen to me, and that includes this experience. I didn't even if I felt so many different ways about what was happening to me, I I found that I would still be interested and intrigued by what was happening to me. Somebody could be attacking my body and threatening my life, but a part of me is still going to be intrigued and is able to acknowledge what that person is specifically doing to me at the same time, even if I felt differently. It's just like being unalived by someone through some sort of grotesque technique. But if it's myself, I'm gonna most likely see that even as I'm being unalived or somebody is trying to unalive me, they I'm gonna see that, hey, I like your technique when you do this. I like how you're doing this specifically. All right, I can acknowledge that technique that you're using is one that is interesting to me, and I can sort of recognize and acknowledge how that is effective, and that eventually helped me get past a number of situations because I was so and not just analytical, but somewhat intrigued by what was happening to me. So I couldn't help but to be intrigued by me looking into a mirror and seeing astral bodies. There are astral bodies there standing around me, or shadow people in the mirror standing around me. So, and that experience became pretty crazy because I found myself, especially when I first discovered this, I found myself going to work and coming home and spending a lot of time in the mirror before and after I showered. So my regular schedule was that I get home, and shower right away. Shower right away, change, eat some food, do something to relax, and go to sleep. That's the thing that I tried to do at that time period. Even if I was fighting with these entities at the same time. But the thing was, I guess by this point I wasn't completely doing that. So that was more like my wind down. I guess that was in place of everything else that I would do to relax. Or yeah. So yeah, I found myself in front of the mirror and, so many times looking at these astral people and seeing them around me, and then interacting with some of these astral bodies at the same time without really completely meaning to. Because remember, I had moments where I couldn't completely control my body at all. No, my mental faculties were still there. You know, I'm still there. It's still me, but whatever's happening, my body is being controlled to some sort of degree. And yeah, it was just a peculiar time. So I guess that leads to another experience involving the mirrors that was on another level. So the next thing I notice is that I see I see I see these shadow people in the mirror, and they specifically would be in the doorway that's right behind me as far as it goes in my bathroom. So, you know, if I am facing my mirror, you know, and washing my hands or something like that, the door's right behind me. And so, I mean, that is, yeah, so it's, so I would find that certain shadow people would appear in that door behind me and sometimes interact with my body. But other times, they would just manifest there. Even if I was standing in the doorway or the equivalent, or in that range of sight, I wasn't. I could be off to the side and looking into the mirror, and I can still see these shadow people there. In my mind, I'm connecting to some sort of mirror world. Um, and funny thing is, I'm talking about that now. The entity that I'm fighting now is messing with my notion of that experience in the first place. So yeah, that is a difficulty that I have. That's a difficulty that I've had to experience. But what made this worse for me, that had me diving deeper into this world, inside of the world, of this mirror world, I had always been intrigued by mirrors and the overlapping of them. So, I mean, right now I don't have this, but growing up within a house that I grew up in, I had a bathroom that had a mirror, and I had, what are they called? I had those mirror door cabinets that were on the walls, and I had one on each side of this sort of hallway that had the sink for me. So I remember often over time looking at those mirrors and seeing that sort of overlay. You know where you put two mirrors together and it has that sort of infinite mirror effect that you see in so many projects on YouTube and what you sort of eventually learn as a child if you eventually put together two different mirrors. It just looks like sort of an infinite tunnel that that you can sort of even dive into if you were able to. Uh, and what made this even worse is that myself, who at the time period and even before this, had a lot of different dreams. I'm someone who, at my base, usually will dream quite a bit. I'm not doing that now and I think that's because of what's happening to me with my mind. But over my years, I've had some insane dreams. I'm quite the lucid dreamer. So I remember a dream that stuck with me for years where I entered a mirror world and there was an entire another world there. I remember there were all these type of agents, and these agents in the dream were people who went around collecting people from the real world. And I remember in the dream there was in the dream my my father had actually been taken somehow, and I went into the mirror world to get him back. And it was a crazy dream because in that dream, I ended up having to go in that dream and combat a number of agents. We'll say these particular like agents, they almost had this sort of spec ops look to them, and they were taking people and freezing them into like these amber like uh, not blocks but rounded edged blocks. So when I went into the dream, and just picture the what is it, the mosquito in the amber in the amber globe on Jurassic Park. Like if you remember that, if you're that old, if you can understand that reference, there's a mosquito that was preserved perfectly in amber, and I believe it was on a walking cane of one of the characters in the first Jurassic Park movie. So it was like that, and I remember finding my father trapped in this amber, and I remember being so enraged. My father is definitely not one to easily be captured when it came to if it were to come to something like that. so, so I knew it was a dream because my father is nowhere near someone who would just be taken so easily by anybody, especially the type of people that I saw in this dream. But I had to combat these people and find a way to melt this amber type material to get my father out. And funny detail about that dream is that to escape the mirror world, my father and I had to go through a particular portal, and an evil version of DC's Justice League, the original Justice League, not whatever exists right now. We're talking the original Justice League. We're talking the Justice League that ended up in the Justice League TV show. That Justice League. I had to fight an evil version of them to get out of the mirror world. So that sort of thing is on my mind along with my interest in mirrors when I'm there interacting with these astral forms and these shadow people that are in the mirrors who were constantly would show up in the doorway. It was like figure at any time a figure would show up in the doorway. and just sort of stare and look at me for a while. And I found that if I focused a certain way when looking at the mirror, I I would be able to almost shift shift from I guess from one entity to another. So I would see one entity, and if I focus in a way, then they would be gone. So I found that, and then what happens if I focused, I would see the mirror ripple like a drop of something while falling into the water and rippling the surface of a still body of water. It was like that. And so I would see the mirror ripple and then the image change. I remember seeing what I thought was what I thought was the source of my torment in the mirror, which was space, this vast black space. And in that space, I was able to see this creature of sorts that was there, that had this giant eye, and I'm thinking that is what was attacking me in the first place. Because while I was in the mirror or looking at this mirror, this specific entity was talking to me a lot of the time. And I mentioned previously that the entity Kaido died. This is after that. So after him, a number of aggressors sort of presented themselves to some degree. Yeah. So sort of another degree. Uh, I suppose since I do have a little more time, I can say one or two more things in relation to the mirrors. I had to stop what I was doing involving the mirrors because I went to my parents' house one day and went into what was my old room and looked into the mirror. And I remember focusing at that mirror in a certain way. And what I saw was an image of my mother wearing a mask. Because I haven't referenced it too many times, but this is during the time period of COVID. So so my mother, being health conscious, would wear a mask quite often, just like the majority of most of the people that who are most likely listening to this or who you know. So I remember focusing on this mirror, and I'm there in the mirror, and a doorway is even behind me. But in this case, I saw a clear picture of my mother. Not an astral form, not a shadow person, a clear 100% a figure of my mother wearing the mask staring at me. But my mother is not there. She's in she's in the building, but she's not where I was at all. I even looked around me to double check. She wasn't there. So she was there and she disappeared right afterwards. Somewhat afterwards. But that sort of that affected me enough to say that, hey, even if this mirror interaction or mirror world might help me figure out what was going on with me, I'm not gonna deal with it. I'm not gonna do anything related to mirrors anymore because of that. I felt that they were either focused on my mother or had somehow attached to my mother, but I wasn't sure at the time. Now I don't think they were attached to her. I think they were just using my mother's figure or my mother's image at that moment. So yeah, I I had to stop that, and yeah, I had to stop that. So I had to find another way to. I had to find another thing to focus on. So that is what I did. But that's gonna be it for now. In this episode here, and I'll continue to something later on. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you all for watching. If you follow me on my journeys so far, thank you for doing so. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any comments, please ask me questions in relation to my experience. And I will be sure to answer what I can. If I cannot answer every question, given that there may eventually be so many people involved, I will answer these questions in a later video. So look out for that video down the line. It won't be just yet, but it will be in the future. So thank you for everything again, and until next time.